That's clear.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Don't move your neck. Don't move your neck.
I was just
Don't
Remember, we're
Yeah.
online right now. Don't remember in the rerun. This is all going to be on.
Wait,
1
let's-
minute.
Remember rerun
Wait.
from what's happening?
Yeah, you know. No, nobody can hear us tell
Hey,
us. Those
I'm
dirty
getting my
jokes.
little AKG in the picture right now. Like be a proper, you know.
There you go. That sounds good. Yeah, you sound good.
Okay.
Perfect.
You know what's fun is like spotting rerun on Soul
Why is
Train
it
pre what's happening. That's
Dude,
cool.
he's been
Yeah.
in.
All right, you guys, it's 3:00. We're gonna give it another 30 seconds just to make sure that we're rolling. We've got a fucking
Rolling.
epic show tonight, you guys.
Yeah. And Kenny's background has just disappeared. It's just a blur. It's just a blur.
That's awesome.
I'm in a room under construction.
Yeah.
All right,
Just like your
Mark, are we
brain.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
You're rolling.
Because
Rolling
it's
with-
just about that time.
Everybody tense up. All right. We're all tense. We're ready to tense it up.
I'm gonna get my hat like Norwood's.
Norwood.
Arcade America. There you go.
All right, you guys, let's go ahead. I think we're live. Let's go ahead and kick this show off. Ready?
Kick it. Beastie
All right,
Boys.
I'm gonna say goodbye to Mark. All right, and here we go. Let me click this. And away we
Keep
go.
on clicking.
The Rock and Talk Show, Beyond Backstage, with your hosts, Norwood Fisher, Kenny Olson, Scott Page, Stephen Perkins, Sheila Conlon, and David Moss.
And welcome to the Rock and Talk Show. This is show number 69, you guys.
Hard to
The
believe.
bi-monthly show that dives deep into the entertainment industry, the business of it, the stories and culture around it, and everything in between. I am the Moss Man. Let me quickly introduce my amazing co-hosts. We have Sheila Conlon from the Conlon Company. We've got Scotty Page from Pink Floyd, Toto Supertramp, Stephen Perkins, Jane's Addiction, Porno for Pyros. Oh, and Think X. Norwood Fisher from Fishbone, Trulio Disgracious, and Think X.
Yeah.
And Kenny Olson, the legendary guitarist, best known for his time with Kid Rock, Experience Hendrix, and Think X.
That's right.
Yes.
How's it going, everybody?
Going good. Been good week.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Happy.
Yeah, we
You
had
know, I was
fun over
just-
the weekend. We had a fun gig over the weekend. It was a blast.
Well, I was
It
going to
was
say, we got
packed.
to do
It was
a
packed,
think,
right?
a think
It was-
gig, an actual think
Yeah.
show, the first show in the
Yep.
new year. We missed Kenny. We missed Norwood. We had some great guys join us, but it was so nice to be surrounded with people dancing and be on Sunset Strip,
Yeah.
right in the middle of West Hollywood. And it was like, it felt great. Great way to start the year, I think.
Yeah, it was fun.
I basically had the best time of my life in a long time. Actually, maybe not my life, but the best time I've had in a long time.
That you
Problem is,
remember.
I don't remember any of it. And the big
Definitely
plus
has-
is I woke up on Sunset Strip, and this time I was actually in a bed.
But were you dressed?
Amazing. It
Were
was
you dressed?
amazing.
Did you have your clothes on?
Yeah, well, I did. But yes, it was nice to wake up in a bed
Yeah.
on Sunset Strip. It's
Yeah.
been a
Yeah,
long
'cause-
time.
You know,
And
Well,
that
I
was-
could be a witness. You had a great time. I
Yes, you
definitely
did have a good time.
witnessed
I
that.
saw it
Did
too.
you guys
Yeah.
watch the 700 Club in your hotel rooms?
no, I saw Norwood was skiing and playing out in Mammoth. What was that like, Wood?
Yeah, bro. Went out with Luis Alliard. Luis Alliard.
yeah.
Luis
Very
Alliard and the Hinges. I'm a hinge.
You're a hinge. I've been a hinge.
Forgot that one.
And we did 2 nights at Mammoth. Amazing shows, fucking packed audiences dancing. And we drove up on Friday, played Friday night, woke up Saturday, and hit the mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
saw
gonna
pictures
ask.
of
Got
you.
my snowboard on. It was so good for my spirit. I I lived on the beach since 92, 91 maybe. I moved in and 1995 I began to snowboard. Jackson Hole, Wyoming was my first mountain.
I just booked flights for me and my son. We're gonna go play with Will at Mangy Moose, and I'm taking my kid to the hole.
Dude. So my first mountain was the most epic mountain in America, just about.
Yeah.
But Mammoth is maybe the best terrain in all of California. It's a massive mountain. I went to the very tip top, 11,053 or 56 feet.
Woo.
Or, you know, like, and it took me to this morning to calculate, like, oh, that's almost 2 miles high.
Yeah.
Wow.
Once you get up there, like, you got to get down.
How long does it take you to get down?
I wasn't counting, bro. I was just like looking to have the most epic time of my life. I took pictures and my spirit is so much better. But I'm gonna tell you what, I was because we snowboarded for a good couple hours before going to the top, and before I went up, I was exhausted. I nodded out. You know me. I nodded out in the gondola on the way up. I was a little worried because, you know, tired gets you hurt. But
Yes.
but man, my spirit lifted when I got out the gondola and saw the epicness of the planet that we live on, and the beauty of what we have as human beings, and how we can appreciate where we live and down and
Got to stop and smell the roses, bro.
yeah,
That's
man,
the game,
it did
right?
my
You got
spirit
to-
good.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
you know how I get down those mountains? I just call those really hot guys with that little sled. I sit down on my ass and I go, I
I'm
can't
hurt.
go further. I cannot go any further.
My
I've been known to do it.
my heart's broken. Kenny,
That's
how have
awesome.
you been, my man? How's everything?
I was
out
saying,
there?
I was thinking about going down the mountain. I want to be like the paper boy in the movie Better Off Dead, chasing for the $2, riding down the mountain.
He
I
skis
think
on
that's
one
that
ski.
Mammoth where he's chasing down, or the
You know,
little BMX bike with skis.
and
$2.
Jane's Addiction did do the snowboarding anthem, like a ski
That's
snowboard.
true.
That
Like,
snowboarding
Coming
thing,
down
though,
the
man.
mountain.
The whole snowboarding thing is crazy. I mean, I remember because
Well-
I skied all my life. Like we had a house in town, so I was a skier, and I saw this, and I was a skateboarder and a surfer, and I said, "Oh man, snowboarding, it's going to be great. It's my sport. I'm perfect for this." I went out and bought all this stuff because I thought I was just going to go. First day on the slope, man, boom, boom,
Oh, yeah.
boom, man, that thing, and that was my last time. I said,
Yeah,
no
there's-
more
it's-
snowboarding for me, because that is like, well, when you catch an edge, that throws you down hard because you
Oh
can't.
yeah.
Thanks. No thanks. So
It's,
I'm
it's
just
way harder. I mean, I thought it would come easier to me too, because I downhill skied and water skied growing up, and you get on a snowboard, it's definitely
oh, it ain't the same at
but
all.
Norwood
It's
has
those
all those
edges,
years of
man.
surfing, like he said.
Yeah.
So it,
Yeah.
you know, him and like my son, who, you know, and then skateboarding and stuff, it is a lot easier, I think.
I snowboarded long before I surfed.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was
We got-
Wow.
We're not going to do that right now, Norwood, but I want you to tell that story on one of our shows, because I was listening to your interview with Oteil.
Oh yeah.
By the way, that's a great interview. I learned a lot about you that I had no idea about from listening to that interview. That was awesome. But listen, you guys, let's quickly thank our last guests. Kenny,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you all.
Now, who was it? Who were we thanking?
Kenny,
What's that? Oh,
you want to
gotta-
thank
I'm
our last
This
guests?
is for
The
Norwood and
show
Kenny.
number 6. Yeah, show number 68. We had a wonderful gig. Wow, what a show.
Okay, here we
Who
go.
was on it?
Richard Beanstalk and
Yeah.
Tom Bourgeois.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, hold on.
Wait, you want to rewind that and try it? Try
I'm
it again.
having
Tim?
difficulties here right now. I'm having you guys like I'm not hearing you guys talking right now, right?
Oh, well, we
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah, well, we had a great show and we talked a lot about the Sunset Strip and the
Yep.
musicians that dedicated their life to it. These guys wrote a book about it, and it was a fun show. It really was cool.
Really was.
So
Yeah,
Very
it was.
interesting.
And
Yeah,
tonight,
having
though,
Richard and Tom
Tonight-
on the show was great. They have that show could have went on and on and on the stories, and that was great.
Just like Kenny.
tonight, you guys, we are privileged once again to have a legend join us.
Big time.
I first discovered our guest when I was probably in 8th grade, and I discovered him because I was a big fan of the Grateful Dead, and he was in a band back in the day with Jerry Garcia called Old and in the Way. He basically also did a couple records, just Garcia and Grisman, and he's the David Grisman Quintet, the David Grisman Quartet. He's played with some of the greatest musicians alive on the planet, and it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome to the Rock and Talk Show for the first time the one and only David Dawg, D-A-W-G, Grisman.
Yeah.
All
We're
right.
so
Go.
thankful.
The
welcome.
presence of a legend.
Big time, man. I've been such a fan. I mean, since like Django and Stefan Grappelli are two of my faves, and this work you did with them. When I heard you were going to be on the show, I flipped out. I was so happy because you're
Thanks. You
one
know,
of the great players.
it was just Django's birthday the other day.
Ooh,
That's
Really?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
Now,
So where are you?
Well, forget that. When you think about a guitar, when you think about a guitar neck and the fingers and the mandolin neck and the violin neck, there's only a few fingers on earth that can understand how to play it, and it's a dedication. It's a lifetime dedication. Now, what made you pick the instrument you did?
You mean the specific, you mean pick the mandolin?
Yes.
Well, I fell in love with bluegrass music. My dad had been a professional trombone player earlier in his life. He was 47 when I was born and died when I was 10, but he got me started on classical piano when I was 7.
Okay.
And after he passed away, I kind of drifted away from that. I was just listening to the radio, you know, rock and roll, the birth of rock and roll back in
Yeah.
the 50s before you guys were born, probably. And so I loved music, but I just didn't like the material I was being taught by my piano teacher, I guess. But around 1959-60, I discovered bluegrass music with 2 other high school buddies, and we all wanted to be banjo players.
Oh,
But my friend Jack Scott, he got a banjo before the others. So and
What's
around
the-
that part,
what's the difference between a banjo neck and a mandolin neck? I
you
just
gotta-
want to learn.
look it up on Wikipedia.
Okay.
But no, what I was saying is I had the good fortune to run into have as a neighbor a man named Ralph Rinsler, who in Passaic, New Jersey, who was he discovered Doc Watson. He was a great mandolin player in New York City's first bluegrass band, the Greenbrier Boys. Made several albums for Vanguard back then. And he lived 4 blocks away. He turned me on to all kinds of traditional music, and he inspired me to play the mandolin. So I went, took a number 30 bus into New York City, and went down to the Bowery, 3rd Avenue, where there used to be a whole bunch of pawn shops, and bought my first mandolin for $19.
wow.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
Perk, I'm no mandolinist and I'm no expert, but I'll tell you the difference between the neck of a banjo and a mandolin.
Yeah.
Mandolin's about this big,
Yeah.
banjo's about this big.
A mandolin is a fretted violin, more or less. It's tuned like a violin, but it's got double strings. Therein lies the rub.
I was going to ask you to show the mandolin and tell us a little bit, because it's one of those instruments that, you know, you've mastered it and
No, I haven't mastered it.
you've mastered it as well as anyone has mastered an instrument.
I
Such a
was
beautiful
able to do my thing with it. You know?
Yeah.
Tell us, like, but to play on Stephen's question, like, tell us a little bit about the mandolin, because it is an instrument that, you know, a lot of people play it, but it's not one of those mainstream instruments.
Well, it's as I mentioned, tuned like a violin, except it has double strings. So in answer to your friend's question, I didn't mean to be rude. The 5-string banjo and a guitar, they're tuned lower, so their necks are bigger, basically. And with the banjo, there's several kinds: tenor, plectrum, 5-string. But a mandolin has a pretty small neck, and I have pretty small hands. Although over the past 60 years, if you look close, my left hand is actually about a half an inch longer than my right hand.
You know what? Mine did the same thing. Playing guitar. Look at that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, they're hard to tune because you have these two notes that have to be exactly the same. And as soon as one goes slightly out, it's a very ugly sound. So, and on top of that, you don't even know which one went out.
Ooh.
You know,
It's not,
it's, you know, it's much easier to play than tune, really, or keep in tune. But, you know, it's been good to me, and I try to be good to it. This particular mandolin was made by a very talented luthier from Genoa, Italy, named Corrado Giacomel.
wow.
And he this is a sort of a take on the Gibson F5, which came into being in 1922.
Yeah.
Celebrated the 100th anniversary of 2 of my instruments. I made a project on that for my company, Acoustic Disc, which that's what I'm mostly involved in now, is producing. Well, I've been producing records since 1963 anyway.
Did you ever mess around with a electric mandolin?
Yeah, a little bit. I own some electric mandolins. I actually own the prototype Fender electric mandolin, but you know what? I'm a dinosaur, boys and girl. And you know, I like acoustic instruments.
Yeah.
I never heard an electric mandolin that I like the sound of.
Yeah.
And especially a solid body instrument with the double strings. It just doesn't. I also don't like. I mean, I like you guys. Some great electric. You know, electric is mostly about volume. And I guess I have sensitive ears, but
well, me as a drummer, I never liked drums. I tell you, man, I want to touch it, feel it, and have it fight back.
Right. Well, I don't
remember
like playing
time ago
and having it come out of a box there.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you playing with, like, it was Wasserman, and we were a bunch of guys, and I think Yorma and Jack had played that show too.
Me. That wasn't me.
It wasn't, because it was a long time ago, and I thought you were playing with them, because Yorma had his lap steel out, and he had a wah-wah hooked up to it, and he was playing lap steel with a wah-wah, and that was just him and Jack alone doing like the Hot Tuna thing unplugged. But I thought you had played that show, because
I might have, but you know,
it was a long time ago.
And I actually read, and I had no idea this. I'm a saxophone player. I had no idea you were a saxophone player.
Well, I wasn't really. When I got interested in jazz, I figured you had to have a jazz instrument to play jazz. So I was actually, the day of the Cleveland riots, which might even be before you guys were born, in 1968, I was plugged in for about 1.5 years with a band called Earth Opera. And we were in Cleveland the day of the Cleveland riots. The gig got canceled, but that day I went to a pawn shop and bought a King Super 20 alto sax.
Well, there you go, Super 20. Yeah, it's a good alto.
It was.
Yeah.
And I never could get a good embouchure, which is, I mean, you can explain what that is technically, but I couldn't make a good sound. And I got very frustrated and just went back to the mandolin trying to, I realized, at some point it's all music. And if you learn the notes,
It translates.
Jazz is, I'm not like a legitimate jazz player, I wouldn't say, but I've worked with some great jazz artists and I have my own way of improvising or playing more freely on the mandolin. I just had, that at least I could get a decent sound out of.
I got a quick question because you have like this really organic tone when you record the mandolin. I know you have your like whether a piezo or Fishbone kind of pickup in there, but do you just use mics in there and different directions on the mandolin and not plug it in at all?
Just one microphone, a Neumann KM84.
Yeah, right on.
That's it. Because and I really know how to work, quote unquote, work a mic. I could stand 10 feet away from a mic and still be the loudest guy in the band if I want. Right but it's this awesome hand that's going to do it.
Yeah, you got to have that dynamic control.
Yeah. Tell us about when the first time you met Jerry Garcia and how that came about. I saw Jerry at the UCLA Poly Pavilion, Jerry Garcia band in probably 78, 79, whatever it was. And that's when I became aware of you because somebody handed me an Old and In the Way disc as I was walking out of the show, had no idea, put it on, listened to it, fell in love with it. And your history with Jerry is history. But talk about that moment, that first time you met, how it came about.
I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really remember it too well, but because we were both at a place called Sunset Park in West Grove, Pennsylvania in the summer of 1964 to hear Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music.
Wow.
Yep.
And that was a very small venue, wooden benches, maybe a couple of hundred people, but there was a big parking lot and pickers would jam there. And that's where I met Jerry.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and
cool.
He had been on a pilgrimage. See, Ralph Rinser, who I just mentioned, took me down to, there were basically small country music venues. There was one called Sunset Park in West Grove, Pennsylvania, and the other one was New River Ranch in Rising Sun, Maryland. They were actually only about 20 miles apart. And Ralph took me to hear Bill Monroe in 1961. And we started going in the summer, they'd have these, country music acts, but every few weeks they'd have bluegrass bands there. So that's where you had to go to hear bluegrass if you were smitten with bluegrass, which Jerry and I both were. He was in the Bay Area and I was in New York. I was a student at NYU. There were these little pockets of like-minded young kids who were into traditional American music forms.
And then
When you say, when you say traditional, is there an instrument? Are there instruments that are traditionally bluegrass and it's pretty strict, or is it flexible?
Yeah, it's pretty strict. Bluegrass has become a general term, but
yeah,
in my definition of bluegrass, which would be probably Bill Monroe's, there's basically five instruments: the 5-string banjo, the mandolin, the violin or fiddle, bass, fiddle, and guitar. And then the vocal style that goes along with that. And these instruments are played in certain styles, like the banjo in bluegrass music is pretty much played in the style of Earl Scruggs. Just a 3-finger roll on the banjo.
Yeah.
I know. I grew up listening to Flat and Scruggs. My dad was a huge bluegrass fan. It's like love. Yeah, they're amazing.
Bill Monroe, when he formed his band, or actually a few years after he formed a band, he had started recording just with his brother, Charlie. as the Monroe Brothers from 1936 to 1938. And then they, had a severe case of sibling rivalry and broke up the act, and each formed a band. And Monroe in 1946 hired Earl Scruggs, and Lester Flatt was already in the band playing guitar and singing, and a fiddle player named Chubby Wise, and a bass player named Cedric Rainwater. And the way those guys played together is what I call bluegrass music.
Yeah.
And many other bands started copying that, like the Stanley Brothers are probably, and Flatt and Scruggs left Bill Monroe's band in 1948, formed their own band, and they ultimately became more commercially popular than Bill Monroe. And Bill Monroe basically trained all his competition, people like Jimmy Martin and the Stanley.
He was a legend.
And,
what was your thought about the Newgrass revival and stuff? I mean, Sam Bush is one of my favorite.
Sam Bush,
Billy
Salmon.
Billy Strings is
It's like
an old friend of mine. I've known him since he was a kid.
Yeah, Billy's been here. I think it's all great. My son Samson just formed a band, the Sam Grisman Project, and he's doing some of my material and some of the material that Jerry and I recorded, and I think music is a living a progression. It can't stay in the same place. It has to go, and I fell in love with bluegrass, really wanted to learn how to do that. Learned every Bill Monroe solo I could. Wow. And a lot of other great players. I modeled myself after, people like Bill Monroe and Jesse McReynolds and Frank Wakefield and Bobby Osborne. But at a certain point, I started writing my own tunes and coming into my own stylistically, more or less. And I realized that there was no point in imitating these guys, that I had something else inside that was starting to come out. So I went with that. And
what year did you start?
I still write tunes. That's what I mostly do now, is write tunes. And run Acoustic Disc with my wife Tracy. We've gone all digital. That's acousticdisc.com. And there's about 140 recording projects in the catalog. Well, I had the Acoustic Disc CD label for 30 years. And right before the pandemic, Tracy and I, our partners, wanted to retire. They got too old, even though they were younger than me. And so we took over the company fortuitously just before COVID, and then that wiped out all my gigs for 2 years, and we reinvented the company to be a digital, and I try to make a different project every month.
So are all the projects on Acoustic Disc your projects, or are you also producing other artists as well?
There are a number of things that I produced. I also, for example, next month's February's release will be by a friend of mine, Radim Zenkel, who's a great mandolin player from the Czech Republic. And he brought it to us. Most of the things I produce, I've been working on a series of, I collected all my compositions in the order that they were written, and I put out 4 called Dawg works. And there's 4 volumes of it thus far, the first 98 tunes. And they all have different, some of these tunes I've recorded several times with different people. Some of them were for movie soundtracks. Some of them, have been previously unreleased, because I've been a record producer for almost 60 years.
Yeah. Wow.
I kept everything. And
You've got your mandolin in hand.
Yeah.
Can we get you and Tracy to
I gotta get my lovely wife, sweetheart.
How long have you guys been married?
We got married on 7/7/07.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
We've been married 15 years,
Wow.
on 16, you know,
That's great.
other, that is.
Welcome,
Tracy,
Tracy.
welcome to
Hey,
the Rock and
Tracy.
Talk Show.
Hi,
Thank you.
Tracy.
And by the way, a shout out to your son Monroe
All
for,
right,
for hooking us up and making this happen. And
great.
of course, Craig Miller, your manager.
Monroe, you know, has a band called, he's in a band called Petty Theft that plays from the
Right.
Bay Area.
How long has he been in that band? Because I knew the keyboard player was a dear friend of mine. I don't know if he's still in it. Mike Emerson.
He's been in it since it started.
Oh, so he knows Mike Emerson, who was
He does if he was in that band.
yeah, awesome. All right, well,
Yeah.
tell us what are you going to play for us?
Hey, this is a little thing. I know you guys are rockers, so this is one of my recent tunes. I actually dedicated this to Ralph Rinsler. It's called Rinsler's Rag. It's kind of it's borders on some form of rock and roll.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
Wow. David
grass
and
is
Tracy
blue dream
Grisman.
now.
I didn't know you were doing Led Zeppelin.
That was awesome. Talk
was
about the
amazing.
expression, my grass
Right
is blue.
on.
Yeah, man.
All
Oh
right.
That
my
was
God,
awesome.
that's such, I love that just brought back a lot of memories for me. That was
Oh,
awesome.
that was so cool.
Talk about the name Dawg. How'd you get that?
Yeah,
Well, you
where'd
know,
that-
Jerry Garcia gave me that name.
And
Wow.
and why?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I didn't remember this, but one time we were together in my studio and we were talking about stuff and he said, yeah, I gave you that name. He said, we both lived in Stinson Beach, California at that time, during Olden and the Way. And he said, Jerry had like a Bentley, like a poor man's Rolls Royce. And it had right, you drove, the steering wheel was on the right side. And we were stopped at the one stop, you can't really call it downtown, but the one little
Strip there.
crossroads in Stinson Beach where there was it goes up the hill. And we were stopped there and Jerry looked, from the right, I was sitting, to the left of him and he looked past me and saw this dog. and started calling me Dawg. In Olden and the Way, we all had nicknames, Jerry's was Spud Boy.
Good boy.
Is that because he ate a lot of potatoes or what?
Maybe, I don't know how he got,
Yeah.
we just had, John Conn was Mule. Used to go,
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, Stephen Grappelli is one of the greats. And I mean, he's not considered a bluegrass player.
Oh, no.
And so how did your two worlds collide? 'Cause-
Well, I started writing music that wasn't bluegrass
oh,
long time ago, if you're familiar with my work, I write all kinds of tunes.
Oh yeah.
I write bossa novas, I write swing tunes, I write sort of extended pieces. And that's what, when I started my band, the quintet in 1976, really started in 75, Tony Rice was really arguably the world's greatest bluegrass flat picker at the time, playing in the world's greatest bluegrass band, J.D. Crowe and the New South, which also had Jerry Douglas and Ricky Skaggs in it at the time, as well as J.D. Crowe's a master of traditional 5-string banjo playing. And Tony heard the music I was writing and decided he wanted to play that. So he moved to California into my basement and we started working on this music, which I called Dawg music, to actually separate it from bluegrass because it wasn't bluegrass and there was no singing in it. It was instrumental music. I had done this for a year prior to that with a violin player named Richard Green from LA. Yeah. And we started a band called the Great American First String Band and then American Music Band. And Jerry played some gigs with that, as did Taj Mahal. And we basically did a new take on string band music in America.
That's awesome.
And
Taj.
like Stefan and Django did in the 30s in Paris, they, and before them, Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang, made some incredible records in, around 1927, 28, violin and guitar duets, really, so there's a tradition of string instrumental. I don't like to, jazz is a general term, bluegrass has become a real general term.
But these are American. These are truly American art forms, right?
Right,
I mean,
they are, yeah. They're very broad. They're very broad. I mean, the jazz. Are you talking about Louis Armstrong in 1932 or Miles Davis in 1968?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so broad. Or Bill Evans or Benny.
Sure. I had a quick question about like English and Irish folk music. Bert Jang.
Oh, Burt John.
Yeah, some of that music. Does that affect the bluegrass? Do people follow each other? Is that
Irish fiddle tunes, Scots Irish fiddle tradition, ballad? Bluegrass is a real melting pot. There's all that Celtic influence in there, but there's also blues. And Bill Monroe was very influenced by a blues player named Arnold Schultz, a black man.
Yeah.
Oh.
There are a lot of, it's truly American music, like the way jazz, it has deep African roots. It also is rooted in, European classical music as manifest by, a lot of Jewish songwriters like Irving Berlin and Cole Porter, and writing these standards that jazz musicians improvise on. So there's a lot going on in all of these concerts, it's some aspects of it are really a lot this way and others are that. So for me personally, I never studied. I learned a lot of fiddle tunes, but they weren't probably the authentic Irish way or
right.
I like to listen to lots of kinds of music. On my phone here, I have 30,003 songs.
Wow.
And he listened to them every night. He listened to them every night. He listens to them.
I got a question though.
You played,
ranging from Mozart to the Stanley Brothers, or Bill Evans.
Mozart to Motorhead.
What would be your most memorable, one of your most unique, performances with a group where it really got far out there, something that was, more pioneering than anything else you'd ever, one of your more memorable, unique sessions?
It's funny you mention that, because I moved up to Washington State, and I'd had a lot of tapes stored in a studio in Sebastopol, California, and my son just drove up a batch, and I've been having them transferred. And the other day, an engineer brought a transfer of a tape that that I remembered from March of 1974, a gig at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, where I was playing with Richard Green. We had to put a band together, and we were going to play opposite Vassar Clements, who a local young band was supposed to back up. And I had just finished, Old and the Way had just sort of stopped playing. A couple of months before that, I was in a band with Vassar. So this particular gig ended up Vassar playing. This young band said, "Hey, this guy belongs with you." And they graciously, so we incorporated Vassar into this band and played a lot of the tunes that I wrote for the first time. And so it's interesting. I remember that gig because it was kind of the birth of Dawg music for me. First time
wasn't Vassar part of Old and in the Way, or no?
Yeah, it was, right. That's the thing. See, it was the first gig I was going to play with Vassar after Old and in the Way, except he wasn't going to be, we weren't going to be playing together.
Got it. Okay.
He was going to be playing with this young band, and they said, "Hey, he belongs with you guys." So
Old and in the Way put out one record, right?
Yeah, but that was 2 years after the band stopped playing.
Vassar was on that, and you were on
that was from a live gig.
Gotcha.
The Grateful Dead formed a record company, Round Records, and in 1975, Jerry called me up and asked me to put together a record of Old and in the Way, which I did. And
got it.
We've been putting out, subsequently, years later, after I started Acoustic Disc, Jerry said, because their record company had kind of, folded, and they they kept licensing their records to various companies. And Jerry said, you know, the licensing is up. Why don't you take it over? So, but then when we looked into that, he was wrong. It wasn't up, but we decided, hey, maybe we should listen to the rest of that material from that time. There was two really good gigs that were well recorded by Owsley Stanley III, you know, the Acid King.
Yeah.
So we went back and listened to these tapes, and you know, the original album was just 10 songs. I was very critical, and I just picked 10 songs from one gig. Well, ultimately, we put out 2 more CDs of other stuff on the Acoustic Disc label, and finally, I reconstructed both of these nights at the boarding house where we played. And there's about, I don't know, about 50 songs. And I put it all out on the 4 CD set called the Boarding House Tape, the Complete Boarding House.
Wow. I haven't checked that out. I got to check that out.
But you can download it. It's all available as downloads, the whole catalog.
Write that
which was,
down.
you know, the main thing, you know, I have a cylinder collection, you know, cylinders.
Oof.
I have mandolin cylinders. I still don't have a cylinder player, but then they had 78s and 45s and 8 tracks and CDs and cassettes. I mean, the main thing is the music. And now it's kind of a beautiful idea that I can make a project and put it out instantly, and people can
There
buy
it is. Yeah.
and I only have to make one. And so I don't have to worry. All the foibles of the record business are, you know, how many do you manufacture? You know, then you just go to a distributor, you get returns, you get stuff.
No,
gets
retail is dead.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And
So-
you know, it was interesting what you were saying when you released 10 songs and now you go, well, now there's 50 out. We're so precious, but as we get older, we listen to the
Right.
music and go, hey, it captured my spirit that night. I'm not perfect.
So-
Who cares, man? Put it
It'll
out.
also
Right?
never happen again.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
most of our artists are sadly gone, you know.
Yeah.
I put out a Bill Monroe show that I recorded myself in 1963. And
That's cool. That's cool.
there's,
Amazing.
you know, I put out a lot of sort of historically important to me things. There's a great mandolin virtuoso named Dave Apollon, who made very few records, but they're all available on Acoustic Disc.
I just recently, I wore Old and In the Way Out back in the day and didn't listen to it for a long time until we confirmed having you on. I'm like, God, I got to listen to that. And I pulled it out and I've been listening to it all the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Such an amazing record. Like, it's just.
You like it? Well, you know, we also put out high definition downloads. In
Cool.
a lot of cases, like the Old and the Way is available, that they're at 24-bit 96 kHz, which to me is noticeably sonically superior to CDs.
Wow.
And you could get, in a lot of cases, you could get that. You could get a CD quality or an MP3, which is mastered at what they call insane quality. And they're all the same price. So it's just how much space you want to take up on your computer. Or
We're going to introduce another. We're going to bring in. We're going to keep talking, but Scott, why don't you introduce Thomas?
All right. Before we do that, one quick question. You brought up a name, Joe Venuti, which a lot of people probably don't know who he is. I always know Joe Venuti as the prankster. He was obviously a great musician.
Yeah.
But he would, so I was just curious, because he was the guy, just so you know, that he would call up and he'd call up all the string bass players and say, hey, we got a gig Friday night, 7:00, meet on the corner of Sunset and Vine.
Yeah, right. There's one story in Manhattan. You know about Trigger?
No, that was with the bow, right?
Bow, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, we get into those.
Mixed audience.
Mixed audience. We can't get into that. But yeah, he was famous. So he'd have all the bass players, every one of them would show up on Sunset or wherever it was in New York, right? It was crazy.
Yeah, he also, you heard about him putting sand every night. He was on tour in the bass player's bass.
Yeah, to make it heavy.
But but after about a month, the guy could hardly lift this thing.
Yeah, and he also took the guy that was the guy that wore the hat at the front desk. He kept putting paper in the rim so it would get smaller and smaller. So over weeks, the guy thought his head was getting bigger. You know, it was one of those things. He was crazy. Anyway, Joe Venuti, but anyway, great stories.
Those are some good pranks I'm learning.
Here down at the bottom, we have Mr. Thomas Claxton. Mr. Thomas Claxton, we've been having the honor of playing some gigs with my brother. We're actually myself and actually Tony Franklin. We're coming out to Georgia to play some gigs with you. Welcome, Thomas Claxton.
What up, Thomas?
Thomas.
Hey.
Can everyone hear me good?
Yeah.
Turn yourself up.
Awesome.
Hi, T.
Turn it up or get closer to the mic, Thomas. Can't hear you as well as
Am I
we'd
good
like
now.
to.
Am I good?
Yeah,
now?
that's better.
Oh,
Okay,
better.
I can
What-
chew this mic if I need
What's
to.
going on over there? How you been?
Oh, you know, it's the Southeast, bro. It's boring,
Okay.
but it's okay. It's all right. I happen to like boring, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Good.
right. And I need my peace
Wow.
and quiet, man. That fast-paced lifestyle of you guys out west, I can't do it.
Thomas, we've been kicking it here with David Grisman. Incredible conversation. Just incredible to have you on the show once again, David, and thank you for
Yes.
joining us. And Thomas, like, what do you got going on? What are you doing?
Dude, I'm getting ready to go back on the road, man. Looking forward to it. I'm going to be heading back out to California at the end of March. That's following mine and Scott and Tony and Kenny's event we got in February. So I'll be gone from about, let's say, the third week of March all the way until the end of May. I'm not coming home until the end of May. So looking forward to being back out there. You know, it's January, February, always the slow seasons. You know how it is.
And where are you playing? Like, where are you going besides California?
I've got stops in, let's see, I've got to be in Nashville, Memphis, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Denver, Phoenix, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, and then I'm going to loop back around and hit some more of the spots on the way back too. I've got a good working relationship with Hard Rock Cafes that I play in between some of the bigger stuff that I do. So, you know, Hard Rocks treat me good.
Isn't it great to bring music to people and you know, to be able to travel? I've been to every state in the nation because I play drums. It's just
Sure.
I play drums in Fargo. I play drums in Raleigh. I play drums in Anchorage. It's just cool. Congratulations, man.
No, I appreciate that, man. My thing is I love to travel, and that's really why I do it. You know, it's like I was always told by a bunch of the guys in the business, but one of my good friends is Mario Cipollina from Huey Lewis and the News, and Mario told me to always take my time with things and, you know, appreciate everywhere you're at because it'll go so fast that you won't remember it one day. And, you know, and that always kind of hit home with me. And I was like, you know, that's true. I need to kind of enjoy the areas. So when I go to certain spots, I'm not that guy that leaves the very next afternoon or the very next morning and hauls butt to the next city. I'm usually there for 2 or 3 days. I like to enjoy every stop and see the areas and all that kind of stuff. Mr. David Grisman, Randy Wood is a great friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
And he
He's
said to
working
tell
on a
you-
mandolin for me right now.
Yeah, he said to tell you that he's working on it.
All right.
That's right. Yeah,
I've been
When's it going to be done?
I haven't
yeah. I
rattled
have
the
no
cage
knowing
lately.
Randy Wood does things at his pace, but
And you
but he
know,
said- what's that?
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No,
you
you're
mentioned
good.
Mario. I knew his parents,
Wow.
Evelyn Cipollina and John. Of course, I did a lot of sessions with John.
But, yeah, Quicksilver, man. That's a heck of a band.
Quicksilver. Wow, I haven't heard that name in a while. Wow.
Yeah.
That's right. Sheila, how are you doing?
I am good, Thomas. Good to see you.
I love Sheila. I have to be honest with all
We
you.
all love Sheila. Are you kidding?
Sheila's one of my
Yeah.
favorite people on the
Oh.
planet because I've watched her take care of business more times than I can count. Hero.
She can.
Well,
she can.
She is a
She
real
She knows how to wear a
boss.
lot of hats at one time.
I have a great memory of Sheila, and Scott was there. We were in Denver, and this lunatic gets up there and starts saying all this crazy stuff, and Sheila didn't know it was coming. And I got pictures of Sheila, like still frames of her looking at this idiot like, I mean, it is the funniest crap. And before long, Sheila cut that off. Like,
Did you become a ninja, Sheila?
I
Oh,
was.
yeah.
I jumped on that stage yet again.
You're off.
on that stage. And when we were at NAMM last year, I had my first experience with Sheila because I didn't know who Sheila was. I had no idea. Scott did not give me a heads up, so it's partly Scott's fault. Because, you know, Scott and David and the guys, you know, they were just like, hey, come open the gig. And this was literally the night before because apparently the original opener couldn't make it or something. I don't know what the deal was. And I'm up there playing, and this lady walks up to the stage, and she's like, hey, look here, one more. And I basically looked at her. I was like, I didn't have a clue. I was like, who the hell are you? That didn't go too well. So I had to go apologize because I was like, do I have a random person just telling me to get off the stage? I ain't working for you. Get lost. And then I found out that
was a fun show. That was a good night and a fun show. So Thomas,
that was hilarious.
What are you gonna play? You gonna play something for us?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about it. What are you gonna play?
So I've got a song that it's one of those tunes where when you started writing it, it had a great meaning to it, and then life happened and it changed the meaning of it because I wrote it about someone who I don't exactly see eye to eye with anymore, but that's okay because it came up with a good song. And I wrote this tune in 2017 when I was on the road.
Can you make sure you hit your mic close, keep close to that
It's a
mic.
good thing when you can
I
write
got it all
songs
set up for
symbolically that everybody can relate to in their own way too.
Yeah. So basically the song is about getting knocked down in life and somebody special comes along and helps you stand back up. That's one of those things.
All right.
Hit it.
I need
Thomas
that special
Claxton,
person.
right?
Where are you?
Thomas
Thomas
Claxton
Claxton.
right here on the Rock and Talk Show.
Might help if I plug my guitar in. What do you think?
Yeah, that would probably sound better.
Sounds great.
I hear there's a storm raging, could be heading my way. I'm moving on before it all fades. Life is unbelievable when it throws you to the ground. Life is unexplainable. It'll show no mercy when you're down. There could be stars falling in the middle of the day, but I feel your arms around me and I can't look away. Then I feel faith is undeniable. Your soul lifts me from the ground, and time is unreliable. It'll show no mercy when you're down, but you help me stand. Strengthen me in ways that I hope I feel again, and you help me stand. You take away my pain, seeing me a side of what still can be excitable, and I'll always know that you helped me stand. again. You help me stand. You take away my pain. Seeing me a side of what still can be excitable. You seeing me a side of what still can be excitable. And I'll always know that you helped me stand.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
Oh, what a great
Ah.
song,
All right.
Thomas.
Thank
Nice
you.
song,
Nice
dude.
work, Thomas.
Thank
And
you.
then-
Why haven't we done that one sometime?
That was
I don't know,
beautiful.
man. I'll tell you what, Kenny, you
I could hear a
Look at that shine
mandolin
on
in
you,
there.
crazy.
Yeah, I
diamond
was
for me.
here. I was
I'll,
picturing like David putting some beautiful stuff on there. I mean, I'm looking at the screen and you're right next to the legend here. You know, that would, yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
heard it.
mandolin, the everything, the voice, your voice sounded
I think that's
amazing.
got a
Thomas.
pretty complete sound there, though.
I bet David knows what
Yeah.
this is.
Yeah.
Hey, David, what is that, bro?
Well, it looks like a balalaika.
Very good. Yes, sir. And guess what? I have no idea how to play it, but it looks
You know what? Put on a Quasimodo suit and
There you go.
That's a Russian instrument. We're not really into that right now.
No, they're not. But what movie made that famous though? Dr. Zhivago, wasn't that it?
There you go. Well, yeah.
Ooh.
Well, listen, I mean, first of all, we're pretty much at the end of the show, and
Great one.
it was a really great show. And again,
Yeah.
David, I've been appreciating your music for a long time since
I
I was in.
appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
so
you
much,
for
David.
joining us. It means a lot.
And anybody that played with Joe Venuti, man, you're in my book.
Well, I
man.
never.
mean-
I actually went. I went and saw Joe Venuti a few times. Once at the Concord Pavilion, and I went and asked and I got his autograph, and I told him I played mandolin, and he said, "What kind?" I said a Gibson. You know.
Oh,
I mean, you
David,
played
thank you
with
for-
so
thank
many,
you.
just so many great people like Doc Watson and Jerry Garcia and Tony Rice and Peter Rowan and Rob Wasserman and
Rob, our buddy
Stefan Krupelli. And I mean, it's
Dave
just,
Brown.
yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And
Thank
again,
you for you and all the timeless music you have
Absolutely.
Oh, I
gave us
appreciate it.
universe.
Acousticdisc.com. It's all there.
That's
Yeah.
right, acousticdisc.com. And
Yeah.
thank you to your wonderful wife, Tracy, for joining.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Tracy.
she was awesome.
Yes. And so you guys, this
And
was
also thank you for the education. I learned a lot. I really did.
And
Yeah,
thank
I
her
love-
for not only doing it for double scale. Thanks.
Hey, Tracy, guitar player to guitar player, that was a beautiful solo you did.
So guys, anyway, great show. Thomas, again, a pleasure to see
Claxton.
you. And I'm glad I'm glad that we are now good buddies. There you go.
Oh, absolutely,
Good
100%.
luck
You're
with
one of
you
my
guys.
favorite.
Say hi to
people.
Randy Wood for me.
Oh, I definitely will. No, I've known Randy since I was a teenager. I mean,
Oh.
if you guys don't know Randy Wood, Randy is like a world-renowned luthier. I mean, this guy has done work for Elvis Presley, Eric Clapton, Paul McCartney. Well, he almost made a guitar for Paul McCartney, but then I believe what happened was Linda passed away, and it just kind of got sidelined there. But he's done a lot of work for a lot of amazing artists. And
Wow.
but he lives in a very small town out here in about 20 minutes outside of Savannah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
well,
Gosh.
Thomas, thank you. You sound amazing as always.
Thank you guys for having me.
We want to quickly just shout out JBL and AKG for supporting the Rock and Talk show. We've got some exciting things happening with them. Facebook, YouTube, all the other things. We got another great show coming up in 2 weeks with two amazing female artists. We have Maggie Rose, who's an amazing singer, songwriter, and we've got Angela Petrelli going to play some electric guitar for us, or she'll play acoustic guitar on the show, but just an amazing guitarist. And that's
You know what,
February
David?
9th.
David, you cut out a little bit. You want to do that one more time?
Oh, I was just going to say we've got two. Our next show's February 9th, and we have two amazing female artists. Maggie Rose, she's a great singer-songwriter. I actually saw her perform with the Allman Family Revival. She sang Whipping Post, and I forget what other song she sang, but it was just beautiful. And then Angela Petrelli is going to be our music guest, and she's going to be playing an original tune that she wrote, and that's going to be February 9th. Thomas Claxton, thank you. David and Tracy Grisman, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Don't go away. We've got their quick little outro, and then we're going to say goodbye. So here's our outro.
See you next time on the Rock and Talk Show Beyond Backstage with your hosts, Norwood Fisher, Kenny Olson, Scott Page, Stephen Perkins, Sheila Conlon, and David Moss. Executive producers, Sheila Conlon and David Moss. Producer and director, Eric Lloyd. Assistant producer and creative director, Mark Armentano. Editor, Graham Cooper. Theme music by ThinkX. Sponsors, IK Multimedia and Lewitt Microphones. Artist Relations, TPI Films. Special thanks to From the Earth, ThinkX, The Conlon Company, and Mac. Check us out on YouTube/The Rock and Talk Show, Facebook and Instagram at The Rock and Talk Show.
And there you have it. Next show, February 9th.